That's right. Right here's some of the timber that has already been cut up by chainsaws, and you can see it's stacked along the road. A lot of the roads in this area were impassable right after the storm hit.
And you would think that a lot of trees would be pulled up by the roots, but it was so ferocious that the ferocity just absolutely twisted the trees off. It just snapped them like toothpicks, and these are big pines. And the roots were still in the ground in many areas, and the upper part of the tree, the trunk, was just simply splintered and twisted. It twisted it, actually, as if one would take a branch and twist it in his hand and break it.
That's right. There were a few trees that were uprooted, but they were in the minority. Most of them were just completely twisted off about halfway up.
Literally thousands of people helped in the area, traffic control, cleanup crews, there were volunteer groups, rescue squads, all moved in to lend a hand. And there's a great bit of community spirit among all these people who had suffered the same fate. And they just pitched in and helped one another. It was something else to see. One of the great workhorses of the day for everyone was the chainsaw. That was the shovel with which many dug out.
That's right. In fact, let's see, today's about 3 or 4 days after the storm actually happened, and when I got up this morning, I could still hear them going. So they still have quite a bit of cutting to do to clean up some of the broken down trees.
Joe, where you live, was not in a particular area that was hit hard, luckily, right?
Yeah, that's right. I was at home at the time, and I actually heard it, but the wind at home was practically nothing.
When did you first learn that the other areas of town were devastated?
Well, just a few minutes after the storm went, I started hearing sirens, and actually I just live a couple of blocks from where the area that was hardest hit. And it was just a few minutes after the storm that the fire trucks, ambulances, and so forth began coming by my house in a steady stream. And a number of people who had heard about it or received calls, and it's just one car right after another, passed in front of my house. So I knew that something was wrong then.
Did you go over then during the night?
Right, yes. I had, my nephew was over in the area staying with a babysitter at the time, and I had went over to check on him.
The National Guard units here directing traffic, they worked tirelessly all day. The next pictures we'll see were taken on Sunday morning, and we'll show you some of the scenes that happened right after daylight. We started shooting pictures at about 8 o'clock, when most people really had just gotten through breakfast. Sometimes it was served outdoors. People were packing their belongings in the trunks of automobiles, in the back of trucks. In some areas it looked as though they were refugees from a war-torn zone. Relatively a new housing development in the northern part of Abbeville. McKenzie Acres was the hardest hit. People were clustered close together with their homes. Many suffered roof damage such as this. Clouds were extremely heavy, hanging over the area at the time. The birds were singing as if there was something to be happy about. There's the part of the insulation of somebody's house, hanging along the lines like Spanish moss draped on a coastal tree. Some houses received slight damage, others were more profuse. A lady screamed and cried, said, "Somebody come up here and get me." She was standing in the middle of that room on the corner of the second story. Lines down in the area, workmen trying to restore service. 4 days in, most of it was restored. There's a valley below McKenzie Acres here. Storm seemed to skip right up the valley and try to climb the hill to get out of it. As it took its erratic course, it was in and out and then right up against the houses. Visiting linemen from other areas came into this particular place and helped throughout the day. Some of the power lines down, they were everywhere. Only ones allowed into the area were news photographers, members of the media, law enforcement officers, National Guardsmen, and the cleanup crews. And of course the inhabitants, the people who lived in the neighborhood. Ornaments hanging on a shuttered window, untouched by the storm. Scarcely a few feet away, the roof gone.
Home up in the Cold Springs section, halfway between the end and west.
Uh-huh.
And they called us and we come on down. We didn't have nothing up there, just pay us.
You have relatives that live here in this area?
I have a son.
What's the name of this area here in Abbeville?
10 acres.
This was the hardest hit, too.
Well, have you been out on the, what we call the Hodges Road?
No, sir, not yet. This is going to be one more cleanup job here.
It was.
Whose house is this here? Were you trying to...
I couldn't tell you. And two guys coming out, probably out and get questions done and accident.
On that back up here where they took that with that kid, the Newton kid was killed. It just took those houses and carried them right straight on down under the hill there.
You fellows have to work through the night out here, I guess.
Well, they got us out this morning. There's a lot of them that did work and got us up this morning.
In this particular house, a lady who was 6 months pregnant was in this room. All that was left, the den. The house moved from here to there. The den was left. She was in the middle of it, clinging to the carpet of the floor, screaming, crying by herself, and managed to crawl, after it was all over, crawl from this scene unharmed. Is she all right this morning? Bless her heart, she's here. Her husband was away at work.
Oh, house, moved it back over there.
Yeah.
I was just clinging to the carpet for dear life.
Yeah.
I had laid down on the floor and braced
That's not many.
up against the couch in the den. And that's the only room that's left standing now, the den. That's where I was. If I'd been in the other room, I guess I would be
hanging on the wall with them.
Yeah.
That child, yet unborn, will probably be told by its mother someday the story of this devastation.
The trees got...
I said, that's Tom. I said, what if I
Chewed the tops of these trees right out, didn't it?
Drying them out.
How long had you lived here?
Just 2 weeks. Just moved in last Saturday. 2 weeks ago. Yes.
What do you do now?
Go back to my old house up in the country, I guess.
The child who lived in this house where the children lived. 2 of them were killed. One child lost its life in this home. The home was scattered all the way down there. All along the highway, timber strewn by the storm. Many trees, many years old. Now to be simply hauled away. Things are moving again in Abbeville now. People are building back. They've got spirit. A Mennonite group is gladly helping out. They're trained. They train themselves to be plumbers, carpenters, masons. They've pitched in. They're helping out. And Abbeville has a spirit that's to be admired. Everywhere Joe Cheek and I went during that Sunday morning to survey this damage and take pictures of it, people were very kind to us, courteous. And we were glad that we were there to see and to take pictures and be able to show them to you. It's not a pretty sight, and it could happen again. Let's hope it doesn't.